I have a very special announcement to make, but this announcement depends on your participation today. I've been told by ISP's leadership that BS for Peers has been extended to 2 more days starting today. So the sooner we leave this place, the sooner we can actually go and have good time. So do you guys promise me participation? Are you guys going to give me attention? Yes. Because if you do, I might actually request for the beers to start flowing here. Everyone, my name is Doreen Mukwena. I am from a boutique firm called Cybersec Clinic. I am the CISO and CEO responsible for cybersecurity, regulations, threat hunting, and threat intelligence. I am also the board member. I form part of the board of ISP. And today, I'm here to talk to you about something extremely important, our ISPs. So, how many emails do you send today? Let's start with you, Rudy. How many emails do you send?
About 20.
All right. Okay, how many messages did you send today? Do you think that would be possible if you didn't have an ISP? All right. So today I want us to talk about something completely important but tend or seems to be overlooked, ISP challenges. ISPs actually provide us with connectivity. They are the backbone of our connection and us actually doing the real work that we do every day. So I went on with the board and we looked around and we said, let's have a conversation with 3 people that are representing the space that can give us more insights as to how it is like to run an ISP. But today, I don't want us to have conversations about the ins and outs of running an ISP. I want us to have the uncomfortable conversation of the challenges that ISPs actually have. So I'm going to call 2 gentlemen. The first one, Rudy van Staden. I must say, this man is a mystery. I couldn't find anything about him online. And I am a threat intelligence expert, and I must really question your digital footprint. Where are you on the internet? Where do you hide yourself?
It's a whole cybersecurity.
As you can see, I don't even have a bio. So we're going to call Rudy van Staden on stage. Can you please give him a round of applause? Welcome, the man, the mystery. And I'm going to call someone who is more foundable online. Rian Murray. Rian is the CTO and co-founder of YuLink and Rush Network. But I don't want to overexpose or underrepresent him, so I would actually give you the privilege to come to the stage and give us a brief example.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Is that ready?
How uncomfortable are you with that jacket? I can see.
I'm fine. Thank you.
If it was up to you, you'd actually be wearing shorts, right?
Definitely.
All
Definitely.
Right. Without any further ado, may you kindly just give us a brief introduction about who you are, where you're from, what brings you here, and what is your claim to fame?
Yes, so Rian Maria, co-founder, it's a family business with my brother. And we started as a wireless service provider, then moved to be an ISP on many of the largest FNOs in the country as well. And then a few years ago, we also moved our wireless network to be open access. And many guys would say they've got an open access network, but ours is actually really giving ISPs on the network access to control the services and network themselves via API and web interface upgrades, downgrades, all of those things. So we are an ISP on the one side, and then on the other side, we also wireless NO, not a FNO.
Okay, amazing. And let's move on to Rudy.
So unlike
The
my
mystery.
my online bio,
Yes.
which I agree does need some work. So I'm Rudy van Staden, the CEO at RSA Web. Before then, I spent a lot of time abroad. Did a lot of time in telcos at Verizon, Atos Origin, and so got a good view of understanding how the global world works from the ISP space, the telco space. Then had this opportunity at RSA Web like 6 years ago, just before COVID and just before the big increase in fiber to the home, and how we've moved the business forward in from that space. And it's been an interesting journey within the company because some ISPs are quite narrow, so we're quite wide, and so we have mobile data, cloud, business, consumer. So that's been the journey over the last 5-6 years back home. It's been great.
What would you have chosen if you didn't choose this journey?
Honestly, I couldn't think of a better journey. It always involved around getting experience and knowledge abroad and always coming home. And I think that's probably something on a different topic, but South Africa has loads of opportunity. It is still the best country in the world to live. We have problems. Our problems are big in our own construct, but if you compare overall where we're at, and I think for everyone in this room, we're very, very blessed to be in the country that we're in. And we're very blessed to be in the market that we're in, considering those struggles in our country. We're in a growth market.
Perfect. I do believe that South Africa is actually one of the greatest countries to be at right now. And with that said, Marie, you did mention that, Rian, you did mention that you run a family business, right? So if you could just explain to us what are the biggest challenges you've seen over the last 5 years, and how has that market shifted?
So over the last 5 years, we've seen a lot of ISPs pop up. So I believe South Africa is one of the leading countries to introduce open access models on the fiber space, with Vumatel starting it initially as well. And so you can see even South African engineers moving to the US to start building networks there. You would think they are more ahead, but on the fiber FTTX space, South Africa has got a very good lead, but that also opened up the market to many hundreds, literally, of smaller players, which is a good thing for the consumer side. It is good because it's price competition as well. So you've got the race for the FNOs to grab areas because they need a certain uptake, but you've also got the ISP side where it became a price war. And that is quite a challenge for ISPs to look at. How do they distinguish themselves from another ISP? Because it can't just be price. If everyone is going to race for the best price, then you start losing value, losing good customer support and things like that. I believe that is a challenge that we need to address to see how do you differentiate yourself? How do you offer more value? And what we've seen before as an ISP is we've got customers that cancel with us and there's churn and they move to another ISP and then they say, no, for this much lower, I can get this same service. And we don't leave on a bad foot because we're well known for offering good customer service. But after a few months or year or two, there's many of them moving back to say service quality, being available, things like that. But that's just an example of ISPs needs to look at how do you differentiate yourselves, because the challenge is there are so many ISPs. What's different? The first thing people look at is speed, price, that's it. And touching on that as well is to distinguish with business services and home services. Businesses can pay more for a service, but they actually put less strain on your network than a home user. A home user uses more bandwidth. They will phone you much quicker if there's a problem. That is a challenge. And how do you, a business actually subsidize the home users on your network itself? So you need a good mix of home and business. But underlying, the home user expects more than a business.
Definitely. I would actually like to move to Rudy. I mean, you were very specific with the challenges because as a user, obviously, we need to factor in affordability and functionality and speed. So these are some of the contracts that make, the selection of an ISP. So moving on to you, Rudy, what challenges have you seen in your journey? I mean, are you experiencing the same challenges or yours are a bit different?
Some is different, some are quite similar. I think we're all exposed to the journey of the last 5-6 years, and a lot of it is driven by the fiber network operators. So there was a huge rollout in the country, huge amounts of investment. And so business was good, growth was high. And so once those easier areas went to, now where do the fiber network operators go? And so now they're looking for different places to roll out. And I think until they start investing in certain more areas, it does make it challenging for ISPs, because those were your low-hanging fruits, if I can put it that way, on the greenfield sites. Those FNOs have their own challenges. They need access to capital. They need access to new markets. Is the product still right? So I think, we have this journey the last 5-6 years, and have we evolved enough as a company or as an industry? There's a new market out there in the mass market, but the product delivery is different. So do we have the right product? Do we have the right billing mechanisms to address that market? So those are one of the challenges we're seeing. That's probably more recently. We're not going to get into load shedding and all that good stuff. I think we all dealt with that in a great way. I've never invested so much in batteries and in diesel in my life. But that was a different challenge to overcome. And I think, to your colleague's point, our industry as a whole actually has a really negative sentiment. I don't know if guys realize that. So we actually have the worst sentiment in South Africa. Even insurance is ahead of us. So, and what that means is customers are constantly complaining. Our service isn't good enough. We drop the ball, we don't get back to customers fast enough, all this type of thing. And so that customer service element is super important to address. But I think as a whole, 5-6 years ago, guys are rolling out, you had a different type of client, churn was low. Then no doubt a lot of ISPs experienced a different amount of churn in the last 24 months. How do you deal with that? Our customer changed. Are we adapting fast enough? So and I think it's our challenge to adapt in this new market that we're going into.
Definitely. I would like to invite Lorna into the conversation. Thank you for joining us. I know that you had an unfortunate event with, the airport and hotels, but nonetheless, thank you for being here. I do understand that you are the founder and CEO of Sky Internet, South Africa's first youth-funded township-born ICASA licensed ISP. Yes. And I can think and imagine some of the challenges that you have within that space. Can you kindly just introduce us and give us a brief overview of the challenges that you face every day?
Sure. I'd like to greet everyone in the room, colleagues. So challenges that I've experienced within the low LSM market is really what I find that as people behind the service and the product, we often assume for the customer. We don't create products and services that cater to these communities. And what we've found, our biggest sort of win with Sky Internet is creating a system or a model that is not one size fits all for a particular township, because you'll find a lower LSM market, there's a market within that market. So you kind of like have to have models that coordinate together to create this one specific product that caters to a smart community. It might be bundles of products together, but it's the biggest mistake that we make, and it's what I've experienced, is that we assume that this product is what's best for the customer without initially understanding customer needs and customer requirements.
At this stage in time, there are a lot of conversations happening, around expanding access to the rural areas, and some of these issues have been propagated by, other players wanting to enter the South African market. What barriers do you think ISP have when it comes to expansion to the rural market? And this is just for all panel members, not just for Lorna alone.
In my experience, it's wholesale access pricing. That's one of the biggest barriers, and a lot of licensing and regulatory barriers that we meet as last mile connectivity service providers. So it's not as easy to cater for a township where premium or subscription collection is unstable, as well as your wholesale pricing. How do you bridge that gap where you have this wholesale access pricing that is constantly on a month-to-month basis, and from a last mile connectivity service, you probably collect your premiums like 9, 10 months if you're lucky from a household customer. So those are the kind of barriers. Also, rural areas are quite dense, so infrastructure deployment costs more.
Yeah.
And how do we meet up with that? Because already the reason why it's rural areas, affordability, infrastructure, etc. So really, I would say wholesale access, pricing model for wholesale access does not cater for last mile connectivity providers to be able to meet up with those challenges. And yeah, so that's pretty much, in my view, I think.
Rudy, I would actually like to hear your thoughts.
Yes. So over the last few years, we've seen a lot of new subsea fiber cables landing in Africa and South Africa. And before that, everyone said, internet's going to get less expensive. Yes, it did to a certain degree, but that needs to be brought into the country to other smaller cities and towns as well, and more rural areas. The economies, it's an economic question. It's not a technology thing. So technology is there. We can do it. But the economic question is, how do you make it viable? Because it's a big investment up front. But I believe once the investment is made, and that's not a space I'm in, for national long-distance fiber, but if you go to all these smaller communities and towns, I believe the market is there.
Yeah.
So there needs to be much more national long-distance fiber being built in the country itself. And I know there's some initiatives happening, but that can still happen a lot more. And then the next thing is to say, don't look into the technology itself. You fit the technology to a certain market. So the market is, for instance, if it's very difficult to deploy fiber in a very high density area, you can initially start off with some wireless technologies as well. I'm not saying it's there forever, but it's a good stepping stone to actually get into the next step to say, we've got the sign-ups now, how do we take it to the next level and say, let's do a planned fiber deployment for certain areas. So that can, I think previously when the fiber was just launched, it was just a fiber. People don't care if it's a fiber strand or wireless. It's about what you can do with it. What speed do you get? How reliable is it? And at what cost does it come? And there's a cost to deployment thing with that as well. So, yeah.
So I think just to add on to that one, you were alluding to, for the rural areas, access to backhaul. If backhaul isn't there, it's not going to work. So I think that's the long-distance builds. And then the only way that's going to be viable is if those backhaul build costs can be reduced.
Yeah.
Otherwise, the business model is not going to make sense for these guys. Are we going to have a new technology or new connectivity medium coming in? Is it going to be worthwhile from your LEO services, via Starlink or Amazon? Does that serve some of the community?
Yeah.
Is there enough bandwidth in there in some of these areas? But I think also then when you go into, if you can get into the mass market, whether it's in a rural area or maybe closer to home at the large metros, when the guys roll out, it only works at scale. So you can't play with try this. You got to know what you got to do, and you got to roll that thing out at scale to bring those economies of costs down. Otherwise, it's not going to work. It's not going to scale.
Yeah.
And then it needs to be flexible enough. So the technology bit is a little bit important, I think, that have the guys actually cracked the rollout model in these areas. We got a couple of new Gen FNOs building here. We've got Net 99 there, and we've got Fiber Time there. And are they doing something different to the other guys? Does it give the customer, because you can still roll out, but if it doesn't give the customer the flexibility you refer to, and I completely agree, it's not going to work. The oaks are going to be wasting their money. So your solution's got to provide the flexibility. Do I want a minute of airtime or data? Do I want a month? Do I have the speed and bandwidth to stream? Is it cost effective to roll out? The guys that are rolling out have got to bring their build costs down. Then we can get into the market. Until then,
I think it's completely impossible to marry cost effectiveness and regulatory compliance. So let's just right now talk about regulatory compliance within your space. I mean, if you look at policy, which policy or regulatory changes would help most ISPs deliver inclusive, resilient services? I know that the regulatory question most people don't want to indulge in because it has a mix of controversy.
I can jump in,
but
yeah.
honestly, these are the conversations that we need to have, as service providers.
Yes.
I mean, which part of policy do you think will assist you, build and scale up?
So regulations, I think it's better. Regulations normally holds you back, or it forces you to do something. So no one likes that. You don't want to be told what to do and what not to do. I would rather have a carrot in front of me, so maybe financial incentive, regulations, USAF, contributions being paid by license holders, that's going nowhere, to rather have a carrot in front of you than someone behind you with a whip. Because that's what regulations normally is to tell you what you should do and what you shouldn't do. But it doesn't look at the business side of things. So in terms of the regulations, for instance, Leo, we can keep on fighting Leo, but Leo's going to happen. In what form? That's the question. So Leo is definitely going to happen, whether it's Starlink or Amazon or Baidu, and that, I think, with our geographical area and the big country we are in and how we are spread, it can definitely make a difference. So even for lower LSM markets, to be able to use Leo for backhaul and still have low latency, high speed, and have Wi-Fi. So that is, you have to fit the right technology for the right situation. And Leo is going to play a role. It's just in what sense.
Yeah.
But regulation-wise, I don't like any regulations.
Yeah.
I think it should be market-driven, and there should be incentives rather than saying you have to do this and you don't do this. And I think that is a thing with most business owners would say it is that way. You start a business because you see something service lacking, or you see an opportunity where you can do better. And that's why you jump in as an entrepreneur and as an ISP as well to say, what do we do to make it better? What do we do to make the country better, bring connectivity to more? We don't need someone to tell us that we should make the country better. It's already in us, and we want to do it as the people of South Africa.
Yeah. Lorna, I would like to invite you. You are an ICASA licensed ISP, and
Correct.
And I would like you to actually explain to us today what regulatory changes do you think would actually assist you?
For all the smaller ISPs that have now emerged, that I feel give us a great opportunity to fast track the bridge for the connectivity, to bridge the gap for the digital divide. It's if we can try and ease down on those sort of regulatory compliances from an ICASA license perspective, to look at why do I need to first get an ICASA license before I've proven the concept and gotten to market and gotten paying clients, because I first need to set up the network. So now I've got 100 paying clients, so now ICASA can say, hey, hold on, you need to pay your ICASA license.
Yeah.
Okay, but I've got paying subscribers, so I can afford to pay the ICASA license. So now I'm going into a township, Alexandra or Motherwell. I don't even know if this network is going to work. Do they have backhaul? So there's a lot of capital that has to go into setting up the network before you can even provision the service, so you can start understanding whether there is a market demand in this area. Is this type of solution that we are deploying from an infrastructure aspect going to be able to service the amount of people in this area? What does 5 years look like from a population growth, etc., and expansion, migration of people moving in and out of these communities? Because if we look at Alexandra, I mean, is a best example, because people come in 2-3 years, they've moved, but it does not necessarily mean that the amount of people in Alexandra has narrowed down. It doesn't get smaller. Instead, the number gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And how are we meeting that from a network infrastructure deployment, ICASA licensing? How is that bridging the gap?
Yeah.
Sky Internet was founded in 2019. The last time an IECNS was issued or an invitation to apply was around 2016. So that means each and every new area that we go into, we need to acquire an ECNS and an ECS license. That's 30,000 Rand off the bat. I haven't gotten the wholesale backhaul. We haven't done any community engagement. We haven't paid extortion. There's a whole lot
Yeah.
of other, there's whole other dynamics, There's a whole lot of things that go in that I feel like sometimes that people that sit up there and create these policies don't understand because they barely set foot in a township unless it's elections.
Yeah. In fact, I like the fact that you mentioned the elephant in the room. Extortion and protection fees. I know that it's actually part of your budgets as ISPs, service providers as well. And maybe, and I like the fact that SAPS is here. Maybe we should invite them into the conversation and ask them what policy implications are they going to give us to curb the protection fees that we have to pay. And before we get to that, let's talk about load shedding, another issue that we have. How did that impact operations in the past 3 to 4 years?
I think we touched on it earlier, but just back onto those issues. You mentioned those challenges, that this being one of them. That being one, I think, for a lot of guys on the extortion side and the protection services side, how the community engagement works is a very tricky thing to navigate.
And way-lift disputes?
Way-leave disputes is one. Again, it comes very much down to, listen, you've got to work on relationships.
Yeah.
Good relationships with municipalities, understand how they work. There's a process to it, and they're all different. We can't just say, oh, these guys don't want to work with us. There is a way to work through these things. I think the other big issue, and it was spoke about actually skills, lack of engineering skills. We have amazing engineers in this country. We need more. We don't have enough software developers, don't have enough network engineers. Guys have been working abroad, what have you. So it's good to see so many here, but skills is another big issue in the country. And then when it came to load shedding, listen, load shedding at that time wasn't for sissies. And I'm quite proud to say what we did in our network, we actually invested up until a point where we were telling our clients we were actually basically stage 8 ready. So we went around and we designed our own load shedding solutions. The guys brought in a couple of engineers. Our own engineer sat with them. We designed our own lithium battery inverters using best of breed inverters from Norway, and then we rolled this out to all our POPs. And so these things could run for 2 to 3 days. So we invested a lot. And so when load shedding happened, our network was up. It was solid, it was stable, but you had to put the investment in.
Yeah.
And then we had to budget around that. So the budgeting part was the hard part. But if you didn't do it, you're opening yourself up to risk. So we went to a lot of our providers at the time. Our vendors, DFA, and these guys, our friends at MTN and Vodacom, some guys here. And we asked them, what is your SLA around load shedding? And the M&Os were like, well, maybe we can do something on stage 1. Or stage 2, but we're not going to do anything more than that. We're like, geez, that doesn't really help us. You're an upstream provider. And so other upstream providers would maybe go to a stage 3 or a 4, which wasn't good enough. So we had to invest to tell our clients on the part we're responsible for, we'd be stage 6 up to stage 8, and you had to invest.
Yeah.
So we pulled a lot of stuff into our own data center. We invested in a failover generator of a failover generator, and you had to invest. And that's how we got through load shedding.
Okay, I'm having such a lovely conversation here, but time is against me. So in the interest of time, I would like to request about 5 more minutes and give the audience about 2 questions for the panel before we can wrap up. This is such an interesting conversation that we went over time, and I wish we had more time, and I would like probably for ISPA to grant us more time next year when we have iWeek, but this is amazing. Does the audience have questions? Are there any questions? Oh, yes, and one more, 2 questions, 10 seconds each. Okay. Oh, yes. Oh, we have a question from SAPS. I hope he will address the extortion part.
Hi, my name is Brian. I've been running ISPs since the mid-90s. I had an interesting conversation. I'm from Malawi at the moment. I'm running a small ISP in Malawi. But I had a very interesting conversation last night with ISPs in Kenya. And I wanted to ask whether the challenge that we were discussing is something that you guys have encountered here in South Africa. So the way it played out was Typically, an ISP optimizes their network for downloads, right? 75% down, 25% up, right? Because internet traffic is asymmetric. And this particular provider was receiving a lot of complaints from their customers about the network just not working. And it took them a bit of time, but they did find out eventually that for a significant group of clients in a particular neighborhood, which was mainly residential, the traffic pattern shifted and became 75% upload and 25% download, because the Gen Zs were all influencers now and uploading content to Instagram. I mean, it's kind of sounds funny, but they actually make a lot of money, right? They make a lot of money for themselves. These are unemployed young people that are now making hundreds, thousands of dollars a month, uploading videos to TikTok, to Instagram, to YouTube. But that means that it's upload heavy, right? And he was able to satisfy them by flipping the QoS, right, for his network. And I just wanted to find out if you've noticed any such dynamic in any of the operations or areas that you serve. Thanks.
All right, thank you, sir.
So-
No problem.
Can I answer that quickly?
Yeah, definitely.
While he's moving there. So there's definitely a shift that upload is more important than it was before. But if you've got all those social media influencers uploading, there's a few thousand more for them to make money that should be downloading that same content. So I think that is maybe a bit of a different case where your upload is actually more than your download, but symmetrical, yes, that makes more sense. But you've got certain applications like an influencer, it's content creators or CCTV streaming to a offsite location. There it would make sense, but upload definitely counts more. It's your Google Drive, iCloud, everything syncing as well. So it does play a role.
All right. Thank you so much for that. Yes, Mark Elkins. What happened to SAPS?
This is Mark Elkins, POSIX Systems. To the lady who's having issues with ICASA licenses, can I please ask you to go to the next South African IGF meeting and do a talk on that, so that people in your position, if you've got one license for one particular area and you're now expanding to other licenses and other areas where you need a license, that there should be some sort of leniency, especially in your particular case, so that you don't need a license until you get to, say, 100 people or something. Yeah. Can I please ask you to do that?
Yeah. Thank you.
Greetings, everyone. I'm Wisile from SAPS, but not as a SAPS spokesperson. Well, mine is just two quick ones. I'm gonna try to be brief. When she was giving challenges, part of it that faced with in the industry, she mentioned the issues of extortion, and then the extortion part of it was never dealt with. So it's a sad reality in our country. We have those type of under the table envelopes that's happening for you to get something in government institutions. That's a sad reality. I just wanted to find out with you, how do you get through those things? And if you are not satisfied with certain procedure or the way things turned out in that particular office, do you speak out for you to have better tomorrow? Because tomorrow when you come again for the license, such things will be expected as a practice. The second one, to everyone else. Regarding your infrastructure, like you say, having to invest in infrastructure, it's a lot of money, and sometimes you don't have the budget for it, but the situation forces you to do it. How do you safeguard your infrastructure? And in cases of having theft cases happening in your infrastructures, how much of a setback that does to you, and how quick are you to turn around in reinstalling and be back online? Thanks.
Thank you for the question, Wisile, and the comment from Mark Elkins. we've run out of time, but in the interest of time, I would just afford you 20 seconds.
Okay.
Then we close and everyone goes home.
So I'll try and be quick. So from an extortion aspect, born and raised in a township, community engagement. I believe in talking to people and make them understand what it is that I'm doing. I've suffered a lot in terms of township crime. I've been shot 9 times. So when I come to them and talk to them directly to let them know that I'm trying to do this to change the narrative of a township. And so the community engagement works. There is a couple of group of used to be criminals that now run a armed response security. And sometimes it's really in the knowledge. They want to know how. It's just that service providers come, deploy, bring our people, you see things going, and you're not included. You don't understand what's going on. How do I form part of that industry? So when I take them through the steps, when I do the community engagement of how did I stand here and have a network with paying clients, they then start understanding, okay, I need to start from the basics. Where is it do I fit in? So that's how I mitigate the extortion. Then from an infrastructure aspect, I think it's pretty much the same way. It's really on awareness in townships. Once they understand that fiber optic, it's not copper, you burn it, there's nothing, then they start waking up, okay, but how do we then get jobs? How do we get an income off of this? So I would really encourage infrastructure providers, tier 1 service providers, to create programs that bring about inclusivity in these communities and also create the awareness around the infrastructure so that people can start understanding where it is that they fit in. Are they always going to be consumers, or are they also going to partake in the development of their communities for infrastructure aspects?
Thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
I must really say we had such a very interesting conversation, impactful. We learned a lot today, and if there's anything that we can take away from this engagement is that whether we like it or not, ISPs suffer the same challenges and the same issues, and we do need some sort of a stakeholder collaboration, to deal with challenges, especially with extortion, especially where crime is concerned. And as a takeaway, I think we need to merge hands together to deal with issues as load shedding and infrastructure. ISPs as MEM suffer in the hood, in the locations, and they do not have a lot of resources. And resources are strained and they're impacted. So we do need to have a society or community within ISPs where we assist each other. And as for that, I do not have fancy equipment to help you guys with load shedding, but I do have a gift that will assist you when you run out of space in your laptop. So this is what I have from ESPA, and I thank you so much for grasping us.
Thank you.
And as you see, it's nothing for the moderator. Thank you guys for joining us, and you guys were such a lovely audience. Clap for yourself. All right, you're welcome.